So let's jump right into the next faction. The next faction is the Massagetae. So this faction isn't related to the Getae in any way. In the Greeks thought, or the Greek guy that founded this faction thought that they were. They aren't. Massagetae is the only nomadic faction that does not have melee cav. Instead, they rely on high armored units and they also have cataphracts. They are the only nomadic faction to have a super heavy cav unit. With their tactics, they can be quite useful. When you play as the Massagetae, having several lines of shot cav might be a good idea, especially if you use your high tier shot cav first, because they have Draco and can soften the front lines before charging with the cavalry behind, creating a morale shock that the Swebby can do. Your best horse archer unit has cataphract armor and is very resistant to slingers, although prolonged exposure will take them down, and you want most of your opponent's missile infantry to focus on them instead of your cataphracts. No matter what, if heavy or very heavy spear unit if a very heavy or heavy spear unit goes into formation besides square, don't charge it. You can charge squares, but you can't go through them without taking a lot of damage. Do not let meat shields stop your heavy shot cav from going through. It might be a good idea to bait them far away from the main line you are trying to break. Cataphracts usually aren't the best units to try to get at the rear of your opponents unless you have a clear path. So make sure your opponent doesn't have any second line infantry or cavalry that can stop you. To summarize, use your armored units to punch a hole in your opponent unless there are units that could stop it. Try to eliminate any units that can hurt your cataphracts initially. Javelin men, Durios spears, so on. In my opinion, the Massagetae are pretty useful against every Gallic faction. To say they're useful against every Celtic faction is a stretch though, because Tylus is very resilient. However, their killing power is lackluster. So what does my typical army look like? Usually I bring either Noble Horse Archer or Saka Cataphract Horse Archer. I tend to favor Saka Cataphract Horse Archers. They used to be super heavy, but now they're only very heavy as of patch 17. It's not a big deal though. I mean, you still have cataphracts. Usually I just bring 2, depending on, like, if it's large funds, I might not even bring any. Sometimes having 2 Saka Noble Armored Lancers is a good idea. Just remember that they have Draco and cataphracts don't. They have Trample instead. So the cataphracts are better at, like, resisting a lot of fire. They're usually best when resisting slingers, like low tier slingers, not the high tier ones, because remember, they don't have shields. When it comes to missile infantry, it's up to you. If you have a Saka Cataphract General, it might be a good idea to bring another one, and then follow up with a few armored horse archers. But just remember that your core is armored horse archers, but your gameplay revolves around your lancers. So like I said, because these guys don't have melee cav, you know, it might be a good idea to just bring a good amount of archers, a good amount of lancers, and that's it. Because you only have 2 choices, shot cav and melee missile cav. Field artillery isn't useful in most battles for the nomads. They can be useful in the campaign though, so you know, bring them in the campaign if you can. This is what my typical Massagetae army would look like, and that's pretty much it for the Massagetae. Just remember, use your cataphracts and noble armored lancers to weaken up the opponent, and then follow up with your other lancers. It might be a good idea not to bring so many noble lancers, because even though they're very heavy, they are a bit slower, and if your opponent catches you before you charge, your charge gets blocked and your cav unit can get decimated. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the Massagetae. In a few seconds I'm going to go right into the Roxolani, which is the last nomadic faction.